Christina Holland, and I own a new farm, Off Center Farm in Woodbridge, Connecticut, which we started in the spring of 2018 was really my first start. I have 6.5 acres of diversified vegetables, or I have a farm of 6.5 acres of diversified vegetables and cut flowers that I grow on a smaller chunk, about 3/4 of an acre. And we do have chickens for eggs, and we have a farm stand on site, and I take my flowers to a local market, the Connecticut Flower Collective, and we have a lot of room for growth, but for right now, we're really just starting out. When I started my farm, I knew that I needed cooling space, especially for my CSA. I started a CSA in my first few years, and I don't have a barn. And I looked at kind of retrofitting some of the sheds and spaces on our property, but nothing seemed perfect. And I had the opportunity to buy a used mobile trailer that had been fitted as a cooler with a Coolbot, and it is a relatively small amount of cooling space, but for me and for the size of my CSA in the first few years and the farm stand setup that I now have, it definitely has been a good starting size. So I have used it primarily for vegetables in my first few years, and now that I've kind of transitioned to do about half and half vegetables and cut flowers, I do use it for both. And I try to cycle out my vegetables fairly quickly into my farm stand, and haven't really noticed quality issues with storing both in the cool space. And yeah, it's just it's definitely a dynamic place where things move in and out all the time. I got this cooler in the spring of 2018 from another farmer who had posted a bunch of farm things on the New Connecticut Farmers listserv. He was transitioning from where his farm was and was selling a bunch of things. And he said that he had had this trailer for at least a couple of years before. He's the one who built the trailer. But it was a really good kind of way for me to have an initial trailer be a hand-me-down. The dimensions of the trailer are 5 by 4 by 8, or the dimensions of the cooling space now is about 5 by 4 by 8. And it is made of 2-inch rigid foam insulation. And then there's reinforced fiberglass paneling that provides just a really nice surface that can be cleaned. I can spray it down. I can sweep it off. It's mold and mildew resistant, so that kind of helps keep the interior clean and protects the insulation so that I'm not chipping it as I'm getting things in and out. So the guy I bought this from had rigged a temperature sensor that could read an internal temperature, and the thermometer was on the outside. It hasn't been functioning since I bought it, and I haven't really used it, but every time I open up the cooler, I can see that the Coolbot reads right at where I've set it, which is around 40 degrees. So I haven't felt the need necessarily to install one. Even on hot summer days, it seems to hold temperature fairly well. The top of the trailer is actually a light color, so it kind of helps to reflect heat. But the sides are dark black, so they definitely absorb some heat, and I would recommend potentially another farmer to get a lighter colored trailer if they were interested in this kind of option. So this was a big investment for me in my first year of farming. It was $3,000 to buy used. But I had looked into some plans from Coolbot. The company has plans on their website for how to build it, and building something new or new-ish, if you buy a used trailer, the plans that they give start around $3,500. So I paid $3,000 for a used trailer, but had already had all of the materials sourced and assembled for me. And if I were to build it myself, There's really detailed plans available via the Coolbot website, and you can get a price breakdown. They have 3 different builds. They have one by the company of Coolbot, one by an agriculture extension service, and one by a small farm. So you can kind of see how different people basically did a very similar design. And so kind of in hindsight, when I've looked back, comparing what I was thinking for building myself with what Ben, the guy who built this, what he did, it's really similar, and it kind of follows the specs that Coolbot recommends. And I think that that's helpful for someone who really doesn't have a lot of experience with cooling and refrigeration to be able to have several guides and a model really to see how this kind of thing can be constructed, and then moved wherever you are. Yeah, so the plans on the Coolbot website say that building new would be starting around $3,500. I think the Coolbot instructions say that the materials cost, and I think this was from 2017, the materials cost from their local Home Depot or Lowe's big box hardware store, the materials cost was around $2,300. So that is exclusive of the trailer, but that includes the Coolbot and all of the Home Depot materials list. The guy that I bought this from did say that he had replaced his AC unit. He had a larger AC unit in this, or something with higher BTUs, and it got too cold, and so he had replaced it before I bought it in 2018 with a 10,000, I think it's called 10,000 BTUs, which is about the same specs as the Coolbot website recommends for this area. They have, they kind of scale what their recommended coolers are. This is an LG AC unit. In terms of modifications, I really haven't had any modifications. I've found that it works pretty well. We haven't had to replace any parts. The insulation or the plywood on the top of my cooler is warping. You can kind of see it, and I have I do need to probably replace the ceiling plywood so that it is not letting any moisture or any mold or mildew, not giving any space for anything else to get in. That's the one thing that I have really to fix, but other than that, it's actually performed fairly well for me. We just plug in an extension cord that runs from an outdoor electrical outlet. And for right now, we don't have electricity at this site, but that's kind of the beauty of this type of setup, that it doesn't have to be hardwired. So yeah, it's just a heavy duty extension cord that runs out and is plugged in. One of the nice things for me purchasing a used cooler was being able to have it ready-made, and we do hope, as my farm grows, to be building a barn and expanding our cooler space. And I think it provides a nice opportunity to be able to just move this tool that's been really essential to the beginning of my farm business to another small farm, and a new farmer who's looking for the same type of thing that I've been able to benefit from. So I do think that the mobile option is really great because it does provide that kind of flexibility, and it can be recycled, other places. Another thing potentially attractive about having the mobile cooler is because it is on a trailer. If I did have a delivery where I needed to move a lot of product and keep it cool, it could be used as a trailer. It's a street-ready, registered trailer. I wouldn't want to do a lot of weekly moves with the AC unit in place, but to be able to keep things basically as a cooler provides a lot of opportunities if I did need to use it kind of more for the utility of moving product than just keeping it cold on site. And that's kind of a nice option.